The little blue penguins we have here, we actually have 41 in our colony at the moment, and that's really quite special. It's the biggest one colony we've had for a long time, so it's really cool to be a part of. And we actually have a very special guest, or a special penguin in our colony, and her name is Dory. Dory's wormed her way into our hearts very quickly. She came to us in 2020 after an injury. She was brought in by a member of the public into our health centre. After a CT scan, it was found that she's fully blind in her right eye and partially blind in her left. She did take a little bit to get used to our keepers, so she came in and started being reared back into the colony by Erin, into our colony here at Adelaide Zoo. She loves to sit on shoes. One of her favourite quirks of mine is that, after she eats, she'll hang around, not necessarily eat, but she'll sit on your shoe. We do have to specially train keepers to be able to feed her, because she likes to be fed in a certain way. And when you are feeding her, one of my favourite things as well is that she does little circles. Because she is blind, fully blind in that one eye and partially blind in her left, because she can only see out of that eye, she does tend to do little circles and come back to the fish and get really excited. The really special thing about Dory is that when she came here in 2020, we weren't sure how she was going to fit into the colony. As of last year, she's become a mum, which is part of our breeding program. Dory had a chick as of last year. Diplodocus is his full name. Dippy also actually carries some of her really quirky traits, which is special to see. So Dippy does do the little circles and is always very late for feeds. So Dippy being very late for feeds is one of Dory's little features that she's picking up recently, especially being a part of our breeding program. She actually bonded with Kipper not last year but the year before, so 2023, and Kipper is the dad of Dippy as well, so that's quite special, and they have paired up again this year in our breeding program. Being a rescue penguin, her genetics are amazing, so we do love getting rescue penguins into the colony. Obviously the idea is that we release back into the wild, but sometimes unfortunately for penguins they have an injury that's deemed not fit for release, so the injury would not cause her to succeed in the wild, so they stay with us. So Dory bonding with Kipper has been amazing in our breeding, and having Dippy as well is just a little feather in her cap, which is really special to watch in the last couple of years. Another special trait for Dory is that if you walk past the habitat, she will be in the pond and she'll just be blowing bubbles. So, which isn't normal behaviour for penguins, because normally in the wild they would actually go in the water and blow bubbles to get the salt out of their nostrils. However, Dory does seem to find it just entertaining, so she will just sit there day in, day out and blowing those bubbles in the pond, which is really cute.
So she came in 2020, she was found at Second Valley, and she had a really big bump on her head. So at that animal health centre that we have here, the nurses did a really great job at getting her back to feeding. And then when she came to section, that was when us keepers stepped in and we learnt how to try and get her to hand feed. Kind of like the rest of the penguins, and kind of like she was a chick. So when they're chicks, we start to hand rear them a little bit as well. For Dory, however, she was a bit special, so she needed to be in a penguin burrito, we used to call it. So we would wrap her in a little towel, and then that way she was nice and safe and comfortable, and then we could get her to eat some fish. Now after the penguin burrito, we faded that out. We then started to get her to feed with a little bit of assistance. So we would feed with her in between our legs, so on our lap. And then that way we could get her to start feeding with like minimal restraint. And then after that, we would get her to feed with no restraint at all, which was really special when we got to that point. And when she used to be feeding down at the old penguin area, when I was working with her, she would actually sit on the rock next to us as well. So quite often you'd feel a little tap on your arm or a tap on your leg, and it would be Dory sitting there waiting to get her a little bit of food as well. Out of the hustle and bustle of all the dominant penguins, she would sit on the rock and wait for her feed.
But little penguins aren't actually an endangered species. They're actually, according to the IUCN Red List, a least concern, meaning that their population's doing really well out there in the wild. So having a breeding program is really important for little penguins, especially because they are an insurance population. So what that means is that their biggest part of their population is only found in one part of the world. So that being Phillip Island, which is a little island off of the coast of Victoria. So currently there's 41,000 little penguins there at the moment, but if anything were to happen to Phillip Island, maybe unfortunately like a natural disaster, the population would be at risk almost instantly. So zoos have to have an insurance population with really good genetics to be able to release if absolutely needed, if something were to happen to that population in the future, and that's where Adelaide Zoo comes in handy.